Getting a pedicure in the Philippines is relatively inexpensive. Typically you'll pay around $1 or $2, while back home I've seen it for around $100 at a parlour. There are some good pedicurists in the Philippines and there are some that are not so good. Generally, training is on the job. Now there is a tendency in the Philippines to cut too deeply into the nail, and this can cause ingrown toenail problems later. My advice is be insistent that your attendant does not cut too deeply into the nail. Explain this to them, and even if they seem to understand, watch what they're doing. As a general rule, if a parlour caters for Koreans, they're probably going to do it right, because Koreans are very insistent that they don't cut too deeply. Now, I experienced problems with ingrown toenails quite a few years ago after my first visits to a pedicurist. Should you get an infection from a pedicure in the Philippines, the first line of defence is antibiotic powder. I used to be able to buy this across the counter years ago, but it seems to have been withdrawn from the market. What the parlours do these days is they buy capsules, and they open the capsule and push the powder into the infection or the area where they've perhaps cut a little bit too deep. This generally stops it getting infected. You can actually do the same should you come away from a pedicure later and it starts to get infected. If during a pedicure the attendant does cut too deeply and cause it to bleed, you often see them push the powder into the wound. It's best to avoid that particular pedicurist in the future. If the infection has progressed to the stage where it's an infested weeping wound, then you need to apply a special solution. This is betadine and hydroperoxide. Just apply a couple of drops of betadine and a couple of drops of hydroperoxide. The two substances will react together and start bubbling and foaming. Be careful to try to contain the application only to the infected area, as the skin around it will dry and die as a result. When the infection is cleared up, it's time to go back for another pedicure. But this time, find somebody who's going to be careful and be prepared to get this progressively fixed over a few visits.